First Chronicles, and we're in 29. Last week we were talking about David and encouraging his son in building the temple, and then also about how David gave of his gold, silver, iron, all of the bronze, all of the things that he had. He gave willingly to the Lord. And then he asked the people, latter part of verse 5 in 29, now who is willing to consecrate himself today to the Lord? After he's given all of these things, now he's asking the people, what is it? Who's willing to give? Verse 6, and the leaders of the families, the officers of the tribes of Israel, and the commanders of thousands, and commanders of hundreds, and the officials in charge of the king's work gave willingly. They gave toward the work on the temple of God 5,000 talents and 10,000 denarii of gold, 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze, and 100,000 talents of iron. Any who had precious stones gave them to the treasury of the temple of the Lord in the custody of Jehiel, the Gershonite. The people rejoiced at the willing response of their leaders, for they had given freely and wholeheartedly to the Lord. David the king also rejoiced greatly. And we were talking about our giving. How is our giving? How these people gave. What was their attitude? I mean, did they like, wow, he's asking for money again? I mean, he said, are you willing to consecrate to the Lord? And how did they respond? Not begrudgingly, but willingly. Same as if we go to, in a good cross-reference would be in 1 Corinthians 8. No, 2 Corinthians 8. 2 Corinthians 8, where it talks about the Macedonians and how they gave. We'll just start in verse 1. And now, brothers, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. Out of the most severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able and even beyond the ability. Entirely on their own, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the saints. And they did not do as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord and then to us in keeping with God's will. That's the attitude that we should have in giving also, isn't it? Now, when we get to that point where it says, now they gave out of extreme poverty, out of a severe trial, is giving easy then? When we're kind of down to the last straw, how easy is it to give then? We kind of look at the fact that, hey, you know, the Lord has blessed me and I have just a little bit. That's surely what He has blessed me to buy that loaf of bread with. Or do we have the attitude that, where did it come from to start with? As we look in the latter part of Chronicles there, we're going to see how David says all that we have comes from God. Every bit of it. Jill?
Well, but if you go back to, Matthew 6, when he's talking about, don't worry about this, don't worry about these things, don't worry. But he ends it with, but seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you.
Right.
So that's what they did. They had sought God first.
Mm-hmm. In the Macedonian church, it says they first devoted themselves, they gave themselves to the Lord. First.
And he says, so don't worry about it, because I'm going to supply you what you need. Mm-hmm. Maybe not what you want.
Well, but that's the key right there. Yeah. So many people think that God is going to bless me with everything that I want. That's not true. Now, we are blessed with a lot of things that we want. We are blessed with those. But sometimes we get to the idea that we expect it. That, hey, I want the new truck. God, how come you're not blessing me with it? Mine's old. But, Paul.
You know, the key word there, 1 Chronicles 29, rather than counting the amount of money, which we would tend to do. Chapter 29, verse 3, the key word is devotion.
Yes. In his devotion to the temple, this is what he did. How much now do you have devotion to the Lord?
And what they gave is a reflection.
And that's, shouldn't that apply today? Shouldn't our devotion to Christ, what has been done for us, shouldn't we in turn show our devotion to Him by how we give, how we live, how we are to do, as He says in here, to love people, love our enemy? Isn't that showing devotion to the Lord? How much devotion are we showing every day? It's real easy to do it today, the first day of the week, on the day of worship. We're here, we're devoting to the Lord. But come tomorrow, how much are we devoting to Him? Tuesday, Wednesday, all throughout the week. Because isn't that what He's concerned with also? He loves it when we gather together, because He tells us we should meet on the first day of the week to remember what has been done for us at this table, to look in His Word, to sing praises to Him. That is all pleasing to Him. But what about the rest of the week? Are we pleasing Him then, or are we just pleasing ourselves? Because these people wanted to be pleasing to Him always. Whatever it took. Of course, they were under the law. They had strict regulations they had to follow, or they wouldn't be pleasing. Today, we don't have that strict regulation. Okay, you have to sacrifice this, you have to do this, do this. He leaves that up to us, whether we want to choose to do that. He gives us a choice. He gives us the guideline, but He gives us a choice whether we want to follow that.
Even there in verse 5, he turns it around and asks it as a direct question. Who then will offer willingly, consecrating himself today to the Lord?
Right. Offer willingly. And if we go to 2 Chronicles 9 there, it talks about how we should give generously, not begrudgingly, not under compulsion. He asks us every day, how much do you love me? How much do you love me? What are we willing to give? Fine.
I think I'm a tad confused. Macedonia, wasn't it the place that was real evil at one time? And God, it starts with an M. Must not have been. They were very wicked people, and they were powerful, I think, too. But anyway, never mind.
Yeah.
It's not this.
Well, it's talking about the churches in Macedonia. So even though it could have been a wicked town, this is talking about the churches. Now, they could have been persecuted. That could have been some of the poverty that they were suffering from, some of the turmoil that was going on, but they still gave. It's really not an excuse to say, hey, I'm under duress here. Lord, I can't give to you. I'm under duress. Things are just happening that I just never dreamed of. And sorry, I can't give back to you. Is that kind of saying, I don't appreciate what you did to me, for me? Lord, I know what you gave your son, but really right now I just can't give back to you. That's like slapping him in the face, isn't it? You don't deserve anything from me, even though he gave everything. Joe.
To answer Bonnie's question a little bit more, in Revelation he is talking about he visits the church.
One of the seven.
And Ephesus, a lot of those, that town, were idols everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So he's talking about the church. I know your tribulation, this is talking about Smyrna. The tribulation, your poverty, but you're rich. And blasphemy are those who say they are Jews and are not, but they synagogue of Satan. And each one you go on there, it talks about, I know you dwell like the firmament, I know where you dwell, where Satan's throne is. So there were in the midst
Right.
of this real idol worship. I think Ephesus was pretty bad, wasn't it? Thinking it had.
Well, and take that for example. We look at that and we say, how could they make it? There was just so much stuff going on around them. Back then. What about today? How much stuff is going on around us? We look at that and we say, but we don't have the engraven images and the idols and that all around us on every street corner. Don't we? Yes, we do. We have it all over. We have it on our phones. We have it on our TV. We have it on billboards. We have it on talk radio. We have it everywhere. It's bombarding us. And yet, we look at them and say, oh yeah, but they were way worse off. You know, they had a lot more to go through. Not really. There's nothing new under the sun. And what they went through in all of the turmoil in that, we go through the same thing today. But you know, we can get through that turmoil in our mind. We can get through that turmoil a little better if we kind of give into it, don't we? It's kind of our thought process. If we give into it a little bit, it's not quite so bad, is it? It's not like black and white then, hot and cold. It's like, give in a little bit and it takes the heat off. As Joe pointed out in Revelation, God does not like a lukewarm people.
But I think today, the idol worship that we see in the world today is materialism, for sure.
Absolutely.
And Satan's pretty tricky because he makes it subtle. So it doesn't seem like idol worship, but that really is what it is. If we're given to materialistic things versus God, it's idol worship.
Right. And you look at all the things that was given here in 1 Chronicles 29. All the iron, the gold, the silver, the bronze, all of these things, the precious stones. That was material goods. That was something that could get them by for a long time in their families. I mean, it was like wealth. And how did they give of it? They gave willingly. They gave whatever it takes. We're gonna show how much we are devoted to having this temple, to honor God and get it going. Should be the same attitude that we have today. We are the temple. But we should be honoring God, correct? In every way that we can. Whether it's through our actions around people, whether it's through our giving, whether it's through our love that He talks so much about. The love that was given to us, are we giving that back to people? Are we showing how much we appreciate His love by loving other people? I mean, there are a few, yes, that we can love really well, can't we? But then there's those others that are just kind of right on the edge of just not being lovable. Do we still love them? Because that's what He asked when He was hanging upon the cross. How many people in that crowd that was mocking Him did He love? Every one. Every one of them. The ones that spit on Him. The Roman soldiers that nailed Him to the cross. He still loved them. Now that would be a little tough for us to do, wouldn't it? Right.
So one point I see here is in the first century church and to here in the Old Testament, God's people was to give. That's very prescriptive. It doesn't say that we hold car washes in the community to try to gather funds. We don't try to have rummage sales. His people, Christians, are to give. That's a command. And these other things are not authorized. They're adding to.
Well, I don't know if we could go as far as saying it's an absolute command, because it doesn't say, I command you to give. But He gives us the examples to give.
It's a command.
But can you give me a verse that says,
It doesn't
I
have
command you
say
to give?
command, it's actions, there's verbs, there's lots of,
Yeah,
it's,
but it's not a command like they had in the Old Testament, where you had to give 10%, plus all the other stuff that you had. It was wrote down. It was,
says to
you
give
have to.
and prospered, but it's.
Exactly.
It says to give, and that's an action verb, that's a commandment, it's not optional.
Right. But we are to love our neighbor. Do we do that all the time?
It's still a command.
Yep. But you have to kind of look and see, how much do we really put into this life as a Christian? Right.
Can you read verse 14 of 29?
14.
Chapter 29, verse 14.
Right. But who am I and who are my people that we should be able to give as generously as this? Everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. Boy, that's getting pretty specific, isn't it? Everything we have comes from Him. What are we doing when we give back? Are we giving back a lot of extra? We're giving back what He's already given us, aren't we? We're not really giving any extra, we're just giving back what He's given to us. And we have given you only what comes from your hand. We are aliens and strangers in your sight, as were all our forefathers. Our days on earth are like a shadow without hope. O Lord our God, as for all this abundance that we have provided for building you a temple for your holy name, it comes from your hand, and all of it belongs to you. I know, my God, that you test the heart and are pleased with integrity. All these things have I given willingly and with honest intent, and now I have seen with joy how willingly your people who are here have given to you. O Lord God of our father Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, keep this desire in the hearts of your people forever, and keep their hearts loyal to you. Boy, that applies to us today, doesn't it? Even though it was said to the people of Israel here, it applies to us today. How loyal are we to the one that gave everything for us? If it weren't for Christ, where would we be?
Lost.
If it wasn't for the sacrifice that God gave in sending His Son, where would we be?
Lost.
Lost and dead in sin. As it tells us, the wages of sin is what? Death. It's not life. It's not a good time. God gave His one and only Son. He gave everything. And everything that we have in this world today comes from God. If we give back to Him as prospered, what does that mean? Let's break that down. As we're prospered, how are we prospered? Any ideas? When you receive your paycheck, have you been prospered? How much? How much of that paycheck is owed to God? 10%? 20? 30? I mean, how are we prospered? Is it only what we profit? The rest of it I have to use to live. It's just my profit that I'm going to break up and give to God.
Doesn't say that.
That should be the first thing.
But when we are prospered, how much of that is given to God? Shouldn't everything we have be given to Him? As Joe pointed out in Matthew, if we put Him first, what is going to be supplied for us?
All of our needs.
All of our needs. Right there. All of our needs. How much do we need? When you think about it, how much do we really need?
You're making me feel guilty now.
Yeah, this is probably hitting Joe pretty hard right now.
Friends and
She was prospered yesterday, let's put it that way. But in all reality, if we really wanted to live 100% for Him, wouldn't we just trust Him that He would supply our needs? And be satisfied with those.
Well, that's like testing God. That doesn't, you can't give 100%.
What did He give for us?
He gave His Son.
And what was that? That was 100%, wasn't it? He gave everything He had.
But you look as an example in the Old Testament, they gave whatever percent.
Whatever was commanded.
And so we're under a better law.
Right.
So we should at least give as much as they did if we're under a better law. It shouldn't be less.
No, it actually should be more.
Okay, so then you determine how you've been prospered and how you give. There is no number. But we do live under a better law, which is a good principle.
We do live under a better law. He wants us to realize how much do we truly love Him.
I think it's important to recognize that giving of ourselves to God doesn't always mean putting the money in the plate.
Money, exactly.
Well, not just the money, but even, we don't have to funnel the money through the decision-making process of the church.
Right.
We see somebody in need, we can go help them.
Help them right there.
And so recognizing that we have an obligation to give to those in need, and it doesn't always have to funnel through the plate to happen. And then giving of ourselves is a completely
Because
more.
who is the church?
Us.
We are the church. So if we see a need out there, does that mean we have to run and ask somebody if it's okay to give? We're the church. We should be able to give, right? And it's, as you say, not necessarily always of money, but of time. How precious is time?
You can't buy time.
You can't buy it,
Yeah.
but you can give it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I really struggle with, is time. Giving time for good works. I can give a lot of time to myself. I've got this, this, and this to do. But am I giving that time to the Lord? Am I giving of my time to Him? To creating relationships with people? To get them to see the Word, the truth? Am I cultivating that kind of giving? Or do I disguise it by giving in the plate and say, I've already done my giving? I gave my portion. I did it Sunday morning. That's all that's really due Him. It should be an everyday process, shouldn't it? And
Jesus rebuked that attitude with, I believe it was the Pharisees that they had a process where they could give money instead of helping their parents, and I forget exactly the verses, but there were some who were giving money to the temple instead of taking care of the obligation to their parents. And He rebuked that attitude that you could just drop money on a plate and you're covered.
Right. That's just like buying yourself off, isn't it? Great.
I believe that when you're talking about money and stuff, that's more of a fleshly thing, and God desires a spiritual thing. That's why we have to do His will, and His will is to love Him all we can and to love our neighbor.
Right.
And if you're doing His will, He's completely satisfied,
Right.
no matter how much money you're giving.
Yeah, because we take and look in the New Testament of the widow. And she gave what? 2 pennies. She put 2 pennies in. And what did Jesus say when He sees all the Pharisees throwing in, and they had from what I understand, it was like a pot or something that you put the money in. And they would take several coins and throw in and make a lot of noise. Look how much I'm putting in. And she put 2 pennies in. And He says she gave more than all of these. Why is that? He gave the reason.
That's all she had.
That's all she had.
All she had. She gave everything she had. Glenn.
Just a couple of thoughts. I'll start in chapter 29, verse 9. And it says, then the people rejoiced for that they offered willingly, because with perfect heart they offered willingly
Yep.
to the Lord, and David the king also rejoiced with great joy. And so we see that it's all about, it's a matter of the heart. And then we all know in 1 Corinthians 16, the first two verses, where Paul had commanded the Corinthians as well as the Galatian congregations to lay by in store. And then if you fast forward to James, chapter 1 speaks about, like in verses 22 through 25, to be the doers of the word and not just hearers only.
Right.
And then in verse 27, talking about, visiting the fatherless and the widows and their affliction.
Right.
And then in James chapter 2, starting in verse 14, it really brings it home. What does it profit, my brethren, though a man say he hath faith and have not works? Can faith save him? Or if a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, depart in peace, be you warmed and filled, notwithstanding, you give them not those things which are needful to the body, what does it profit?
Mm-hmm.
And even so, faith, if it hath not works, is dead, being alone. So, given is just, from a financial perspective, it's just one aspect of that.
Right.
But here, that's where it meets the real, like, does somebody need help? Like what Andrew was talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And that there's, tells us we as Christians need to do something.
There's more to just throwing money in the plate, isn't there? Because we owe him everything.
But we still should give.
But yeah, I'm not saying, and I'm not purporting that we not give. I'm not purporting that at all. I'm just saying how we give is very important to God. The widow only gave 2 pennies. How important was that to God? It was more than all that the Pharisees gave. Because she gave wholeheartedly, as Glenn pointed out, from her heart. She gave from her heart. If that's the way we're giving, it doesn't matter if we put $1 in that plate or 1,000. If it's from the heart, he's going to be pleased. But if we put 5,000 in that plate thinking that's going to get us a better shot at heaven, that ain't going to work. And if our attitude is that I'm only going to give to him when he commands me to do this on Sunday, that's not going to work. He wants us all the time, every day. Joe and
Well, Paul
Tom.
was also talking, I think, too, is that he was to store up, or to lay aside, that he was passing through,
In Corinthians.
yeah, Corinthians, to take that money to help another
Right,
church body.
right.
So I think it's also important that we also, we can do the giving, but what are we doing with what we're giving? He was taking that money to help.
To help those in Jerusalem, I think it was.
Yeah.
So, because he said, if you need a letter for me to pick this money up, because I'm going to gather it together, and on this day, I'm going to pick it up.
So he wanted
And
them
take
to lay aside so that it would be ready
Right.
when he came through. Am I wrong on that?
No, that's exactly what it says.
So I think it's sometimes just as important what you are using God's money for.
Right. If we are not good stewards with what he has given us, I was just reading that this morning. We talk about the servants that were given the talents. One was 5, and one was 2, and one was 1. And how did they utilize those talents? One with 5, doubled it. One with 2. And how did the master react to those? I'll give you more. You done good with those talents. What about the one that took and buried it? What did he do with his talent? Did he double it?
He gave it to the other people.
He took it from him, didn't he? Why? He didn't do anything with it. Now everybody will say, but I just don't have any talents. He just hasn't given me any talents that I can utilize. Oh, yes, he has. Yes, He has. It's whether we want to utilize them or not. We can hide them in the closet or whatever and say, oh, He hasn't given me anything to use. He hasn't given me any abilities. But He has. Every one of us has them. And if we don't use them, is He going to be pleased?
And I think that guy was afraid.
He was, because He said, you are a hard master.
Yeah, so I think fear, I don't know, fear of doing what the Lord wants you to do is another aspect. Or like Moses said, I can't talk. I can't talk, you know. Or I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, that's not, He says, He did not give us a spirit of timidity.
No. We should be fearless. We should have a healthy fear of God, but not one that makes us say, I'm not going to do anything because He's going to be hard on me. Because that's what that servant said about his master, didn't he? He said, you're a tough guy. So I didn't do anything with it. I didn't want to disappoint you. But God gives every one of us something to do here. As a Christian, He gives every one of us the ability to do what it says in Matthew. To go out and teach others. To draw others closer to Him. He gives us all that ability. Do we take that to heart and utilize it? Do we set an example before those out in the world? Are we someone that people will look at and say, you know, they're different. They're not like all the other people. They've got something about them that's different. Because as it says, we are a chosen people. We should act like it. We should act like anything that we have comes from Him. Anything that He asks of me, I should be more than willing to do. At any time. Not just on Sunday morning, but at any time. If He asks me to step forward and say, I want you to do this, we should be willing to do that. And yes, you did have a good point. We have to be good stewards with what He gives us. He doesn't want us to waste things. He wants us to utilize them to the best that we can.
But what gave also that example with the talons, he hung on to it. So don't we have to be kind of careful that we don't.
Well, he buried it. He basically just...
Yeah, but he just buried it, but he hung on to it.
Right. He didn't utilize, he didn't let it work.
Right, so we have to be careful, I think, too, with the offerings that we have, the gifts, that we don't just hang on to them and not help people.
Right.
Or help situations or whatever. I think we have to be, it's God's money, not ours.
It's like Andrew said, there's times that we're going to see a need, someone has a need out in the world other than what's been brought forward here. We have a lot that are brought forward here. That's pretty common. People go to churches and they say, I'm in need. Some have taken that to the point of basically scamming people, which is unfortunate. But there are people out there that are in need that don't have that attitude. They are truly in need. And it's up to us to recognize that and then show God's love for us through us helping them. Tony.
And also, when we see the woman and putting in her 2 mites, she was doing it for her own faith to know that God would take care of her.
Exactly.
So then other people that are around are going to see that she put in everything, but she doesn't care what these people think. She just knows by her what she's doing, her faith has to be really huge.
She was doing it for God and not for anybody else.
Right, and showing that she gave everything. I mean, what a huge thing. You
Right.
know? And then you have to know that God blessed her because she gave it, or had given it with a good heart, everything.
Right.
So what a testimony to all these people,
Yep.
too, just from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I am out of time. We didn't quite get clear to the end, so we'll probably finish up next week. Thanks for all your comments. We'll catch up next week and hopefully finish out First Chronicles.